Great. Again, welcome everybody. I think we can dive on in. If you see me looking over to the side here, I have a second screen, so don't worry. So I just wanted to first off introduce what is a Hatza SHINE grant. I believe we have some new folks here who are new to applying with Maryland Humanities, but I think we also might have some returning grantees in the Zoom today. So just a basic overview, Hatza SHINE grant are their general operating support grants worth $10,000 for nonprofit organizations that are doing humanities programming in the state of Maryland. And just a quick note that no matching funds are required to receive this grant. So what can a Hatza SHINE grant be used for? Lots of things. It is not a programming grant, it's a general operating grant. So that means you can use it for employee salaries, programs, equipment and supplies, renting utilities, or really any other general operating expense that your organization incurs. The only sort of unallowable costs that we restrict on are things like construction, renovations, or collections acquisition. And I'm realizing now I didn't, give a preface about having questions. I think if you have a burning question about something that's on the slide, feel free to, use the raise hand feature or throw it into the chat. Otherwise, we can also save questions for the end. I'm happy to answer questions in any order. Or if, you have something you really want to ask me just personally, I'll also throw my email into the chat at the end of the session as well. So that's what Hatza SHINE grants can be used for. Their general operating support. It's very open in terms of what they can be used for, which I think, is part of our grant making practice at Maryland Humanities of being building that trust between organizations and really providing equitable funding opportunities. So if you are looking to apply to a SHINE grant, first thing you might be asking yourself is, are you, as an organization, eligible for a Hatza SHINE grant? So the first thing that for eligibility is that your organization offers humanities-based programming as a significant part of the organization's work. So humanities-based, this is kind of a nebulous thing, right? Where's the National Endowment Humanities definition of humanities, where they're speaking really about work that reflects our diverse heritage, history, traditions, culture, anything relevant to the humanities that reflect on the current conditions of national life. I would also say looking at Maryland Humanities mission can help you with sort of answering this question of whether your organization is humanities-based or not. So right off the bat, our Maryland Humanities mission is to create and support bold experiences that explore and elevate our shared stories to connect people, enhance lives, and enrich communities. So if that speaks to you as an organization, if you're thinking about storytelling, bringing people together, sharing and presenting culture, those aspects of programming, those are central to your organization's mission and your organization's programming, you're going to be a good fit for SHINE. I think on the SHINE grant outlines, there's a link to how we specifically define humanities for the purposes of the SHINE grant, and I can show you all that at the end of the presentation, but it's included in the link on the grants webpage. But I think humanities, it's a very broad thing, right? So I think trying to connect it to our mission as a organization, Maryland Humanities, and then taking a look at those definitions provided by the National Endowment for Humanities are going to be your best bet for answering that kind of question about how does your organization connect to the humanities, and answering that question about, is your organization humanities-based? So that was a very long one. The other eligibility requirements are a lot more clear and a little bit less nebulous. So the second thing is just being designated as a nonprofit and maintain good standing with the IRS, and be physically located in Maryland and have Maryland residents as your primary constituents or audiences, and have a maximum total annual operating budget of $500,000 or less. So that's how you can determine if you're eligible for a SHINE grant. On the flip side, what organizations are ineligible for a SHINE grant? So if your operating budget exceeds $500,000 annually, would make you ineligible. Organizations whose mission or focuses the creation or performance of art. So we're talking about visual arts, musical arts, and performing arts. So if your primary mission is creating or performing, that unfortunately makes you ineligible for a SHINE grant. It gets a little bit fuzzy if maybe your organization is more dedicated to arts education or to maybe using the arts as like a social emotional learning tool, working with youth, for example. But if it's primarily the creation and performance of art, that we try to keep the funding open for humanities-based programs because there's so little funding for humanities organizations, whereas there are a lot of more funding opportunities for the visual arts that would be applicable for them. Any federally or state-funded agency is unfortunately ineligible. All academic institutions, including universities, colleges, K-12 schools, academic departments, public libraries, and advocacy-based organizations. So again, going back to humanities-based programming being the primary focus of or primary mission of the organization, that you are conducting programming, whereas there's a little bit of a difference there if you're primarily an advocacy-based organization, where you're going out and maybe advocating for programming instead of conducting programming. Okay. So if you've gotten through and you're thinking, we sound like a great fit, we sound eligible as an organization, we'd love to apply. What is Maryland Humanities going to look at in our application, and what is going to make us a strong applicant? So how will Maryland Humanities evaluate applications? We'll have a first round of sort of a first evaluation that is mostly just for eligibility. We'll take a look at budget just to make sure it matches your latest 990. We'll look at the tax standing. And then the organization will get 2 scores, one for the per capita funding allocation, which are points awarded based on the county's total population in relation to Maryland's total population, and the county's funding received from Maryland Humanities in relation to Maryland Humanities' total funding distributed. So basically, it's funding in proportion to the population of the county within which your organization is based. So you can see, let me put on the pointer here. I was just going to circle right here where it says 2 points, considerably underserved, 1 point underserved. That will determine what sort of points you'll get in that category for per capita funding allocation. Same thing with socioeconomic prioritization, where points are awarded based on the county's median household income in relation to Maryland median household income. So you can see down here, there's a tier system of 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on the county within which your organization is based. So that's the first round of the evaluation, just making sure that you're eligible, like you're taking a look at that budget, and then those 2 scores. The meaty part of the evaluation really comes in with this second round. And this is all related to the questions and the narrative questions that are on the application itself. So there's 8 sections that the application is scored on. The first being centrality of the humanities in mission and programming. So this is really how integral are the humanities to the organization's mission, how are the humanities represented within the organization's programming? So some questions that you might consider, or questions that the evaluators, the grants committee for Maryland Humanities, who will be scoring these applications, the questions that they'll be considering with this will be the centrality of the humanities to your organization, the mission statement of the organization, and the history of the organization's programming. So they'll take a look at that, and then it's a 1 through 10 score of how central the humanities is to the mission and programming of the organization. Second is the DEAI, so diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, impact strategies and approaches. So how has your organization implemented DEAI principles into your organizational culture? And does your organization have a clear and practical plan to advance DEAI in your organizational culture in the future? So they'll be taking a look at what the history of DEAI is at the organization, what the culture is like, and any plans for the future related to DEAI. The third scoring section is the impact and significance of programming. So how impactful and significant is your organization's programming and collaborative practices to the communities you serve? So questions to consider include the history of the organization's programming, the examples of programming that have happened in the past, and your organization's goals. The fourth category, or the fourth scoring section, is diversity and equity of representation in programming. So how are the narratives of diverse communities represented in your organization's programming? So thinking about going back to those examples of programming and how diverse narratives are represented in your organization's programming. Impact and outreach. So how significant is your organization's audience relative to the community's size and organizational operational capacity? Does your organization have a clear and practical plan to expand your reach within your organization and to your audiences? So things that will be considered there is your organization's audience, the estimated annual audience size, as well as outreach strategies. Representation and outreach strategies for underserved populations. So how are communities that are underserved by the humanities represented within your organization's audience? And what outreach strategies are you as an organization employing to diversify those audiences? And the last two here are just related to how your organization would be proposing to use the funds, the general operating funds, so that you have a clear use of the funds and the impact of the funds on the organization. So if the money is received, how impactful would this funding be on your organization's ability to provide programming to Marylanders? So I want to pause here. This is a lot of information. I also want to say that all of this information is available on the grants website, which I will, Camilla, if you don't mind throwing the link in the chat to the grants webpage. I see I have a couple questions here in the chat. So if our nonprofit does advocacy, are we ineligible? What if we are equal parts advocacy and humanities programming? Doing advocacy programming doesn't immediately make you ineligible. I would say advocacy as your primary mission and primary focus of programming may not make you as strong of a candidate for a SHINE grant. If you're equal parts advocacy and humanities programming, I would say really highlight that humanities programming piece in your application. Certainly let us know that you do advocacy as well. But the grants community is most interested in seeing and knowing about your humanities programming. Hopefully, I hope that answered that, Molly. Are programs fiscally sponsored by 501c3 certified nonprofits eligible to apply? Yes, fiscally sponsored organizations are eligible to apply. I've had that question come up before. I would want to reach out to you in case there are any particular details on the application that may not allow you, just within the grants portal itself. I want to make sure that you'll be able to designate that. So we can be in touch, Ms. Mays. And thank you, Camilla. She just threw in the link there to our grants webpage where if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see all of the links, the guidelines, and this information here, particularly that I just went over on this slide about evaluation, is included in the links that say preview Hatza SHINE Evaluation 1 and preview Hatza SHINE Evaluation 2. So all of this information is available in much broader detail on our website. Okay. Oh, let's see. Could you please further explain the tiers in the previous slide? Under Tier 4, Montgomery County receives 0. What is being measured there? Let's go back there. So that is the socioeconomic prioritization. So what's being measured there is points are being awarded based on the county's median household income in relation to the Maryland median household income. So Montgomery is down there at the bottom. I would assume because the median household income in Montgomery is much higher than the median income within the state at large, which is why it's down there in Tier 4. Okay. Yeah, no problem, Eliza. Oh, Marjorie, I see your question here. Should the budget be for the current fiscal year or the last completed fiscal year? Camilla, can I throw that question to you?
I would say your projected fiscal year budget for the current year, for the year that in which we are applying, so 2023. And we also have a template for that available if you would like, if it would be helpful in any way to have a template. For that, we also have it available. It should be linked within our guidelines. And the guidelines, as Emily pointed out, are among the links on our grants page. You could also reach out to us if you have trouble finding it. We could share that with whoever needs it.
Thank you, Camilla. Okay, jumping into Maryland Humanities funding priorities. So this can just give you a better idea of really what the grants committee is looking for, who were our priorities for who we're going to fund with the SHINE grants. So organizations that center diversity, equity, inclusion within their mission and throughout programming. As we just went over, those are some really key parts of the scoring process, those DEAI points. Organizations that serve geographic areas that have been historically underserved by Maryland Humanities. That goes back to that first round of evaluation where you're receiving points based on where your organization is located. And organizations that serve audiences that have been traditionally underserved by the humanities. So we have some examples here of some audiences that have been traditionally underserved by the humanities. And if your organization in particularly works with these audiences, I would really recommend highlighting that within your application. This list is obviously not exhaustive. It's just some examples of populations. And those are really who were our priorities and who we're looking to fund. And also this list again is not exhaustive. It's just the priorities, right? If your organization is really, really focused on serving these populations or works exclusively in these more underserved areas, that's just going to make your application stand out a bit more. So what documents will your organization need to apply? This is pretty straightforward, thankfully. So just your EIN number from the IRS, and then a copy of your most recent annual operating budget Or like Camilla said, we have a template worksheet available, which is that Maryland Humanities projected operating budget form for fiscal year 2023. Whichever is easiest for your organization. Some organizations have that ready to go and they just upload it. Other people need that worksheet to help them out, and that's no problem. Oh, thank you. Camilla just threw the template right into the chat if that is something that you need. And how do you apply? This is the most important part, right? So all of the applications should be completed online through our grants portal, which is called Foundant. So on this link here, the link that Camilla threw into the chat, marylandhumanities.org/grants. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see this list of links here: guidelines, access grant portal, preview Hatza SHINE application. These are all of the links that you'll need to apply. This link that's highlighted here, access grants portal, that's where you will be submitting your application. That's where once you click in there, it's going to ask you to make an account if you haven't made one before, or if you're a returning organization, you'll already have an account. And that's where you'll put in all of your information, your budget, your answers to the narrative questions, and everything will be saved in there. And that's where we'll read all your information and take all your information from there. I want to remind everybody that the applications close on September 1st at 11:59 p.m. So we've got until the end of the month. And I'm also going to click on our grants page here just to give everybody a quick overview. Please stop share and reshare. So when you go to marylandhumanities.org/grants, you'll see this page here, all about SHINE, the funding announcement, the goals, and then right here at the bottom, these are all the super handy links that you'll need for your application and to apply. So we've got guidelines here, access grant portal, that'll take you into where you can apply. You can preview the application if you would like to see all of the questions beforehand. You can click here and preview the application. The 2 evaluation documents are here. So for example, evaluation 2. Does it come up, Camilla? Am I showing the evaluation 2?
Yep.
Okay. So like I was saying, how will Maryland Humanities evaluate applications? This is a super comprehensive document on every single point of evaluation, questions to consider, as well as scoring. So this will be, I would imagine, would be really helpful during your application process to just take a look at, I mean, this is essentially a rubric, right? So that will be helpful. Same with this document here, exemplary sample answers. This is just a compilation of answers from previous year's applicants who scored very, very highly on that particular answer. So for example, the centrality of the humanities to your organization, where you're asked to describe how the humanities is central to your organization's mission and programming. This answer scored, I think, like a 9 and a 10. So scored very highly. And same for all of the other questions on the application. You can take a look at some examples of previous year's applicants' questions that scored very highly. Okay. All right, so I would like to throw into the chat my contact information. In case, oh, that was a direct message to somebody. That was not to everyone. And I want to open it up to questions. If anybody has questions, I see I have one question here in the chat. Is it permissible to apply for continued funding for an initiative for which we were previously granted?
Was this a grant from us, from Maryland Humanities? Sorry, if we can ask a follow-up question.
Yes, it was. I apologize. We've got some construction going on, which was why I have myself muted. So it is a grant from Maryland Humanities that was used to fund a position, and it's going very well. So we wanted to know, are you open to applying for continued funding for that continued role? And of course, we can provide some outcomes as a result of the support.
I would say, salaries count very much as an allowable cost with this grant. I don't think we would see it as continued funding. It would just be a new award for something that you've received funding for in the past. Those are my immediate thoughts on that. Emily, I don't know if you had.
I agree. I agree, Camilla. Yeah, I think wouldn't necessarily be seen as continued funding. It would just be a new award of general operating support for which you could continue to fund that position.
Got it. So there would be no advantage to demonstrating what the last year's support was able to accomplish. We should sort of treat it as a new application.
I'd say a little bit of both. It is going to be treated as a new application, but within either where you're talking about programming or even talking about your organization's culture, talking about those steps that you've made or progress that you've made within that position is definitely something I think that could only help, not hinder your application.
I'd also add that in the section on how this funding would impact your organization, you could just talk about how important that position has been, and with this funding, how important that position could continue being to your organization.
Fantastic. Thank you. And just wanted to say that having a funder who understands the importance of general operating support is incredibly inspiring and heartening. I know many organizations really prefer to support a program or a particular initiative. So I think I speak on many folks on here's behalf when I say thanks for the work that you're doing. It really does make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks for saying that. I love hearing it. Linda has a question here. For the application questions that allow for 10,000 characters, are you looking for that much information for every question? Would we lose points for not providing that information? Great question, Linda. Camilla and I had so much back and forth on this. Within the application itself, you're going to see there's a disclaimer at the top of the application that says something like, we have set all of the character limits within the application to the highest amount allowable by the software. That in no way represents what we expect you to write. We are simply going with how much the software is allowing you to write. We don't expect that much. Our point in saying that was really that we are putting the trust in you as the organizations, that you know how much you want to say, you know how you want to say it. And we're not looking at all, we're not saying you need to write a 5-page essay and meet this amount of characters for any answers. That's not what's being considered here. We just want you to have as much space as you need or as little space as you need. And the character limit is just simply a product of the software itself. Sally, the application asks about employees. Our nonprofit uses staff that are 1099 contractors. Must staff be employees for us to qualify? No. We have many organizations that are almost fully volunteer run. You do not need to have full-time or employed staff or even part-time staff to qualify. I'm so glad we have so many people here with us. So great. Any other questions that folks have? Are contractor fees considered salary? Oh, are you, Christine, are you asking in terms of how the SHINE grant money could be used? Just need a little bit more context on that question. Yes, are they fundable? Yes, yes, contractor fees are fundable, yes. They are considered part of general operating. Darcel, our organization is located in Prince George's County, but participants from various parts of Maryland. How would that impact the scoring rubric, or does it? For the sake of the, if they're, this is a tricky question. Darcel, I would say get in contact with me. If your organization primarily serves an audience outside of where your organization is located, get in touch with me, especially if there's a big discrepancy in the scoring, right? If you're located in Prince George's, but you primarily serve people in a in a county, that would significantly change that scoring. If that's the case, get in touch with me. The only thing I would ask is that it somehow be demonstrable that your audience is located primarily outside of the county within which your organization is located. So whether that be on your website, you know, talking about audiences, or whether you have audience data about who your audience is, just somehow being able to demonstrate that your audience is located outside of your county that you're located in. My organization uses the address of our registered agents in Garrett, but I am mainly in Prince George's County. Does that mean that we are tier Prince George's or Garrett County? Again, I think that's the same kind of thing where normally if you're putting that into the application, it would be wherever your organization is registered. But again, if your audience is mainly serving or if your organization is an audience that is mostly located outside of the county within which your organization is registered, get in touch with me, and again, have sort of some way of demonstrating that your audience is outside of your county that you're registered. And while we're doing that first round of the eligibility, I can take a look at that scoring there and make sure that you're really, your scoring matches your audiences and your organization in the most accurate way possible. Sure thing. Any other questions from folks? Also feel free to shout them out too. They don't have to be in the chat, but I recognize chat's a little bit easier for folks. All right, then I think I'm going to stop recording here.